Where would you be if I wasn't there? Where would you be if you didn't share? Where would you be if I didn't care? Where would we be if we weren't there? A call of distress to help you out of this mess. And all that it says in this little text is, can we talk about your brother? Your friend gave me your number. I don't want to be a bother. A bit of assistance is all that I'm after. Turns out that wasn't true, but we'll get to that in a little. I do my best to help you, give the advice you need to hear. I think I'm helping, giving the reassurance you are needing, but little did I know there's another reason why you're here. I thought that would be the end of it. You'd take my words and make your way, but I didn't know till now you hadn't even started. You still had something left to say, but you don't quite have the courage yet. Save it for another day. Up all night, 2 nights later, 1:19. I just laid there, watching your heart pop up on my screen. You told me there's someone, but never said it was me. Now you're stuck here, torn between myself and the enemy. Well, I don't quite mean it like that, but we don't get along well. Never mind, just ignore that. You tell me the truth, as long as I won't tell. You don't want to start a war, don't want to end things badly, but if I wasn't there, where would you be? We didn't plan for this to happen. I would never have imagined that we would end up where we are. We were both so scared to start. An awkward circumstance. We got here just by chance. We could have been anywhere, and yet we were there. But if I wasn't there, would you still be with him? And if it would have ended, then when? I think of all the ways you've changed me, and all the things I'm rearranging, just so maybe I'll create some space to fit you neatly into place. I see your lovely, glowing face that no one ever could replace. Within a week, I was hanging out at yours, sharing music in the kitchen, spilling flour on the floor, talking till we don't know what we're saying anymore, and when it came time to leave, I was left just wanting more. Within a month, I had a poem for you written. You'll get to that one soon enough. Just hold on a few more minutes. I let you read it for the first time on March 22nd. You said you loved my words and felt appreciated. Within 2 months, we were on our first official date. We started our journey with a journey round the lake. I started getting used to having a smile on my face, and I've got a good feeling that my life's about to change. Within a year, imagine where we both could be. We'd be together and happy still, hopefully. I could be free from all my pain, maybe someday, just eventually, and it could all be so perfect, like it was always meant to be. Where would you be if I wasn't there? Where would you be if you didn't share? Where would you be if I didn't care? Where would we be if we weren't there? What lies ahead is not very clear. The past in my head just leaves me in fear. But now I can see you're right here, my dear. Wherever we'd be, I'm glad that we're here. Hello and welcome. That poem you just heard is my poem I wrote called If I Wasn't There from my book, Maybe Someday, Maybe Someday. And as I've talked about here on this channel, I've been going through that book one poem at a time, sharing it with you, and then kind of giving a little bit of the story and meaning and significance to me behind each one. Just kind of going through, because this book really documents like the life I lived when I was 17 and 18 years old. I wrote my first ever poem when I was 17, and it completely changed my life. And ever since then, I've written all the time to just help me with anything I'm going through, and to just capture moments of my life and be able to document them here, so I can always have this to look back on and see how far I've come. So if you're interested in seeing any more of those, you can check out all the previous videos that I've already done so far on my channel, and subscribe to stick around for all the future ones coming in the rest of this book, and also my second book called I Love Him at Last, and my third book that I'm working on right now. But of course isn't out yet, but we'll get there eventually. So, as I've also mentioned before here, several of the poems within this first book are about a relationship I had during that time that was like my first really significant relationship I ever had, and was really good in a lot of ways, but also was a major challenge and was a very difficult time for me. And because of that, it really transformed who I was, and I learned a lot from it over time. And this poem is another one. We've done a few so far that have like been about that, and this one is another one, but kind of still early on within that relationship. But this one was kind of a little bit into the relationship, starting to kind of reflect on what had kind of happened so far, like our story together and everything that showed kind of what we had been through so far. And I, in a way, was just kind of still, I guess, shocked that this was even happening, and was trying to reflect like how did we even end up where we are? How is this even possible? Like, what has happened exactly that has made all of the pieces fall into place to line up like this? And so that's when the idea for If I Wasn't There came from. Like, if the very first thing that happened between us hadn't happened, like, where would we be? Would any of this have ever happened? Would we be in completely different situations? Like, what would our lives even be if that hadn't happened and we didn't end up here where we are now? The majority of the poem just kind of goes through that story, starting from the very beginning to where we were at this present point when I wrote it about 2 months into it. So I'll go ahead and kind of summarize that main story. It's described here in the poem, but I'll kind of just like say it a bit more as it is so you can kind of maybe get a better understanding. And yeah, just an overall summary. So before I had really ever met her before, she kind of started hanging out with my brother and his friends, and was kind of becoming a part of their friend group. And then eventually, a little while into that, there were kind of some problems going on within that group, and largely involving her, and just a bit of like high school teenage drama that was going on at the time within their group. And so this one night that I guess things were especially bad, kind of between her and my brother, and she, I guess, um, she decided to get my number from one of my friends that she knew, and like reach out to me, kind of asking for some help and advice and whatever for dealing with this, since it was my brother who was there. She was, I guess, like kind of coming to me for advice on how to help, um, kind of wanting me to try to help her with this, because they neither of them really like wanted problems or anything, but it's just kind of what was happening, and they kind of wanted me to help settle this, I guess. And so we kind of started talking, and I tried to help her as I could, and try to keep things as positive as I could between all of them. And I mean, of course, as I say in there, like, I little did I know that this, while that was an intention of hers going into this conversation, that wasn't all there was. There was something more that she was hoping to get from this. And so I just kind of went along with what was happening, not knowing that she had further intentions with this. And then, as I say in there, that 2 nights later, after we first started talking, we kind of got a bit deeper into conversation, and like stayed up way late, like past midnight, texting. And she sort of started hinting, as I say in the poem, like telling me that there's someone, but never quite said it was me. That um, on top of this stuff we had been talking about with the drama going on, she had told me that there was some guy she liked, and was kind of coming to me, I guess, for advice for that in a way. And I mean, first off, I was just like thinking, why would you come to me? Like, I'm not the person to ask for help on this. But she had been really nice so far, and uh, I'd been talking to her with this other stuff and just trying to be helpful and supportive as much as I could. But it didn't take too much longer before uh, the hints continued, and I realized that she was talking about me. And then pretty quickly we ended up like talking and hanging out a lot more, and it was just going really well in the beginning. And then that's when I kind of in the poem go through and describe kind of the like those beginning stages, like within a week, all these things, and onto a month, and then 2 months at the time of when I wrote this, and just a lot of positive things. And I was like just feeling so grateful for everything that she had brought to my life, and just that she was a part of my life. And yeah, just kind of reflecting on all of that. And in a way, just because of the way I am, I can't help but kind of worry and get caught in thinking of the past and everything. And so I kind of got to thinking of like, what if none of this had happened? Where would I be? And is this kind of, I guess, an imposter syndrome kind of thing where I was just feeling like I don't even feel like I deserve this. Like, I feel like so much good has been happening with this relationship and everything that it's just too good to be true. And I couldn't stop just thinking in these ways of like, if we hadn't been there, if this hadn't all happened, where would we be? Where would I be? What would be happening? Because at that time in my life, of course, as I've described in a lot of these poems, my life wasn't really going in a good direction at the time, and I was really struggling with a lot of things. So without all the good that was coming into my life, I was kind of worried about where my life would be going at that point. And that kind of added to how grateful I was about her and all the positivity she really brought to me at the time. So then I start in the poem kind of fantasizing a little bit about if this continues as it's going, where in a year and beyond will be, and all the good that could possibly ever come from that. And I mean, as I've said before in the previous poems about that, spoilers, but it didn't end up lasting. It was about a 6 month relationship that will go through the whole journey throughout the rest of this book. And yeah, it still remained a mostly positive thing for me, but of course didn't work out in the end, and ended on good terms and everything, but did not turn out as I had envisioned at the time when I wrote this. Also, as I've mentioned before many times in the poems we've gone through so far, the this book, of course, being called Maybe Someday, was because after I wrote all the poems that ended up being in this book, I then decided to create this book. That wasn't the intention from the beginning, but then when I was assembling them all together and kind of reading through them all and putting this all together, I know before I came up with the title for the book, I began to notice how much in so many of these poems I was saying things about maybe someday and some variations on that, but that same kind of idea of just like someday. And this poem has another example of where I say, specifically, maybe someday, in that section there, where I say, I could be free from all my pain, maybe someday, just eventually. And so, yeah, that's just another example of that contributed to the book ending up being named what it is. Also, a couple little details that connect to two of the poems we've talked about previously in here are one where I say, within a month, I had a poem for you written. You'll get to that one soon enough. Just hold on a few more minutes. I let you read it for the first time on March 22nd. You said you loved my words and felt appreciated. That section there is referencing my poem Equator, which was the first poem I ever actually wrote for her. And when I first wrote it, I just kept it to myself. Like, I was a little bit just too nervous and awkward and everything to share it with her right away. But then eventually, as I say there, on March 22nd, I sent her the poem and let her read it. And then in the very next part there, where I say, within 2 months, we went on our first official date. We started our journey with a journey around the lake. And that part, of course, is referencing my poem called Around the Lake / Sticks that we talked about a little while ago here. And so, of course, both of my videos for those poems are already up on my channel in case you're interested in checking those out. And I'll also put links to them down in the description too. I think one of the main key things about this poem for me is how I so often tend to get caught up within these what ifs and everything that I kind of worry far too much about the past and the future that I end up ultimately kind of neglecting the present. But in the end of this poem, I try to kind of remind myself to really live in the moment with her and not at all take for granted the way that things have happened to turn out for us. I believed that she was truly meant to be in my life at the time, and I needed to fully embrace that. Things turned out the way they did, and I was very happy that they had turned out that way. So there was really no point in trying to like stress about what could have otherwise been or what has happened in the past and what could possibly happen in the future. Wherever those other possibilities may have led us, I was just glad that they had ended up leading us here. And I was trying to trust that they would continue to work out as they're meant to, and that however things ended up happening, that it would be for the best. And now, of course, looking back on that, like 4 or so years later, even though, of course, that relationship didn't end up turning out super well and as I'd hoped at the time, I do still very much believe that everything happened as it was meant to. A lot ended up coming for me from that relationship, and it completely changed who I am in a lot of ways for the better. And was just an experience that was, I think, very important for me, and I would think both of us. And I believe that it was right for us to end up going our separate ways at that time. And we have since then, of course, still like ended on good terms and have remained decent friends and everything. So it's not like things ended tragically or anything. But while I'm not someone who like believes in fate and destiny and all of that kind of stuff, I do truly believe that things do happen for a reason and kind of as they're meant to in a way. And that no matter what, things, even when they seem that they're not, they are in a way that is ultimately for the best. So that's something I was really trying to focus on when I wrote this, that even though sometimes things seemed like they weren't as they should be or were a struggle or just didn't make sense to me in any way, there was no point in overthinking that and worrying about it and everything, because I just needed to trust the process a bit more and that things would turn out as they're supposed to and would turn out for the best, as I truly believe they have and continue to do. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. And of course, if you have any thoughts on anything I talked about or the poem in any way, you are more than welcome to share that in the comments. I always enjoy seeing what people have to say and trying to connect with all of you. And I hope to see you here next time for my poem called In the River, which is, of course, the next poem in this book, and we'll be covering in my next video in this series. So, yeah, as always, just remember, we're all broken, and we're just arranging the pieces. Thank you.